It's a football Friday kind of day. So what we're going to do, we're going to evaluate. We're going to evaluate where the Eagles stand 2 weeks into the offseason, 2 weeks after free agency began, 2 weeks into building the 2025 Super Bowl champion Eagles. Their weaknesses, their strengths, what maybe the story we've seen so far tells about the draft. We're live, taking all your thoughts and opinions. It's Shane Haff, live at 9 a.m. in 1 hour. Trending in the AM, we start in 30 seconds.
Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 woo!
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on the STT Sports Network. We are live, YouTube and Twitter. Make sure you do your worst. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and please hit that share button. I'd greatly appreciate it. Those three buttons, clicking those three buttons, like, share, subscribe, do more for me than anything you could do. So please do that. I'd greatly appreciate it. We've been sitting at 473 subscribers for quite a few days now, so I'd greatly appreciate your help. If we get to 500 by the end of the weekend, I would be jumping for joy. We're also on Twitter, so make sure you hit the retweet button, repost button, but try to find the YouTube page, which is linked in the bio or in my bio there on Twitter. So make sure you do that as well. It's a football Friday. We're going to try to stick to football today. We used to do this on the offseason last year. Fridays are for football. I know it's March Madness. I know baseball's right around the corner. We're going to talk a lot of baseball next week. But we got, football Friday here. And, I feel like it's a good time 2 weeks into the offseason to evaluate where the Eagles stand. What are their weaknesses? What are their goals the rest of the offseason? Do they need to make a big splash move? Do they need to draft? Like, where do we stand? And obviously, stay tuned. Because at 9 a.m., it's 8:02 right now, but at 9 a.m. in just under an hour, Shane Haff, Eagles Pinball Podcast Network, will be joining us. We love Shane. You asked for Shane. We're bringing Shane. We'll get his thoughts and opinions and his educated mind on this Eagles offseason, where they stand. But I like to get into it and talk about this. Good morning, Little G. Hope you are well. Yes, Big Al, Shane Haff. Hey, there were multiple people asking for Shane Haff on the morning show. So Shane, I get you. You guys asked for Parcero. I gave you Parcero. You asked for Haff. I'm giving you Haff. I give the people what they want. That is what makes me so special. Dive says my bracket got busted more than the Chiefs' offense in the Super Bowl yesterday. I saw somebody talking about that. Like, what's the most cliche March Madness thing? My bracket is busted after one game. I know. I know. I gave my man Cole a little grief yesterday. Because he said on the show Clemson could make a deep run, and Clemson's gone already. So, yeah, how about that? I did not fill out one bracket, Big Al. Did not fill out one. What are we doing here? Trying to talk all football here. And here we are talking March Madness again. I love it. Somehow, I ghost walked through a 45-minute March Madness conversation yesterday, and I feel like I didn't make myself look like a fool. Considering I've watched 0.00 seconds of college basketball this year, which is crazy because I used to be a college basketball nut. But somehow I slept, walked, and made it through that conversation yesterday. Definitely did not help the algo. This week, the algo's been down. Last week, the algo was booming. This week, the algo is down. So whatever. It is what it is. But anyway, I get thinking yesterday, being 2 weeks in, Clemson looked like the Bryce Huffs of 2024. Yeah, probably. I mean, I didn't watch it. I watched 0 seconds of March Madness yesterday. 0.00 seconds. Came home from work, got done recording the Eagles check down on the Pinball Podcast Network, uploaded it, went and sat on my couch, turned the TV on. I'm like, oh, what's on tonight? Flyers hockey? Nah. March Madness? Pass. Pirates of the Caribbean? Click. There we go. That's what we watched last night on the TV for an hour before I went to bed. Because honestly, at this point, maybe someday in the future, I'll get back into college basketball. I'll refine my love of basketball in general. But yeah, dude, I've been faking it till I make it in life since I can remember, because that's all I do. Early games sucked, but the later games were solid. Cool. It's crazy, Dives. I said it yesterday. Like, there was a point in my life where I would try, I would consider closing the pizza shop just so I could sit at home on Thursday and watch March Madness Day 1. Now I just, life gets in the way. Something's got to be cut out. I'm not cutting out the Eagles. I'm not cutting out the Phillies. I just recently cut out the Sixers. I got this show in the morning. Like, something had to bite the bullet. I work 7 days a week, 80 hours a week. Something had to go. College basketball is one of those things that got dropped from the importance meter in my life. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. I was starting to lose a little interest in college basketball when the Big East changed. It was a good 10, 15 years ago when they restructured and a whole bunch of teams left the Big East and came into the Big East. I lost that. ESPN used to be Big East Monday. It was a triple header of Big East basketball games. I would watch all three of them. I would, just not anymore. I used to take a week off for March Madness and home opener. I mean, it's a great idea right there, except not now. I would like to take off the home opener for the Phillies, but that's not going to happen either. Next Thursday, Dylan Davis will be on the show from DSM Media. We're going to do a lot of Phillies talk, and then Thursday will be our kickoff and prediction show on the Phillies. You're not going to want to miss that. Trying to line up a fun week of Phillies baseball next week on the show. But let's get back to football. It is a football Friday, okay? Double D, yeah. We all love Dylan Davis. Dylan Davis is the man. DSM is the man. Are great dudes, Dylan and Scotty. Got to love those boys over there. Did Duke play yesterday? I don't even know if they played yesterday. I know he's all decked out in his Duke Blue Devil blue this week. Let's get back to football. Let's get back to recapping the first 2 weeks and getting a gauge on where you feel. Because the smart people know that the Eagles have a long offseason, that the offseason is not complete, that there are still holes on this team. There are still players that need to be replaced. But there is a certain portion of Eagles Nation that is not happy with how the Eagles offseason went so far, being that it's 2 weeks. But I think you can look at the offseason so far. You could grade it fairly. You can also look at things that is like Howie is doing, like his top 30 visits so far, and get a gauge on where his mind is with this team. You can also look at this team and tell where the weaknesses are at this point, mainly on defense, and kind of get a gauge on where we're headed over there. We're about just over 4 weeks away from the NFL draft. So far, 4 people have been brought into Philly that have been officially announced for top 30 visits. All 4 of them are offensive linemen. 7 of the last 9 first-round picks the Eagles made had 30-man visits, top 30 visits. Howie is definitely interested in offensive line early this draft, whether it's round 1 or round 2. And that, to me, tells me a lot. Peanut, what's up? And guys, again, make sure all of you guys, Deebs and Big Al, I know you're in the chat. There's more than that watching right now. Please click on Pixelated History's YouTube page. I linked it in the description, or if you could just click on his profile picture and click subscribe there in the chat. Greatly appreciated. His son and him have a great little history channel there that they put together. It's fun. It's informative. Really enjoyed the Mayan Conquistador video that you put out early this week. I saw it. So good stuff, guys. Make sure you're not going to want to miss what they're doing over there. Plus, it helps support Peanut and his son on their little venture there. It's a lot of fun. Is Howie more heavily focused for 26 and 27 than this upcoming season? No, I don't think so. I think Howie is focused on getting the back-to-back title, hence the extension for Saquon, hence bringing back Zach Bond. But Howie does know that 26 and 27 are going to be critical years, critical off seasons for this supposed dynasty, potential dynasty. The Jalen Carter contract. And Dodge, I'd love your thought on this. What you think a Jalen Carter extension is going to look like. I did it a couple days ago or maybe last week. I wrote down the top 5 contracts in the NFL on defense now because Jamar Chase makes more. But Myles Garrett getting $40 million a year, 122 guaranteed. Chris Jones is a top paid defensive tackle right now at 31.75 a year, 95 guaranteed. Where will Jalen Carter fall in that line? And I think his offseason is to try to win another Super Bowl and doing what he can. But he's got to be very cautious to keep that money available to make Jalen Carter, at that moment, the highest paid player in the NFL. The first second that he's available to be extended, he is going to get the extension before anybody else resets the bar. And I think that is, unfortunately, a big part of this offseason is remembering that Jalen Carter has to get paid. Now, there's other guys that got to get paid. Cam Jurgens has got to get paid. You got to figure out the Jordan Davis thing, which I'm still confused as all hell on what to do with Jordan Davis. But there is some tough decisions down the pipeline. So he wants to win. He is focused on winning, but he's also focused on the future. Since European talent became better than American college players, I think that's fair. Somebody brought something similar to that up, asking about why so many good French players in the NBA. The European basketball game invading the NBA, so to speak, kind of has taken a little of the luster off, maybe, for sure. Peanut says, party on broad. I think Howie drafted these guys for the reason you got to trust your younger guys in the salary cap age. Keep your core. Yeah, I think that's a very fair way to say it. Very fair way to say it. You draft well, you pay the top stars, and you just keep drafting well. You trust your development from your coaches of these young players. A lot of these young players have outside. Name a young player in the last 2 or 3 years that had, or you can't even say 2 or 3, last 3 to 4 years that hasn't developed even a little bit. What's the last drafted player that just gave a complete bust? What's up, Rick? Good morning to you. I did not catch last night's podcast of yours, but I will catch it today at work. You got to start doing your show earlier. 10 p.m.'s past my bedtime, Rick. I'm an old man. I'm in bed by 10:15. You got to do your show earlier for me. JC and Q both going to be highest paid at their. Yeah. I mean, Q is a few years away still, but Jalen Carter's next year. And that is part of the offseason situation. Obscure movie reference incoming. Today's guest is Shane Haff. Wonder if he's related to Sebastian Haff. Let's see if, I don't get the Sebastian Haff off the top of my head. Have not had enough coffee to catch that one. Question for Shane. How does Ojulari fit Vic Fangio's defense? What are realistic expectations for him in 2025? And do you expect him to start? Doesn't even matter if he starts, Stubbs. Like the way they run the rotation on defense, like I got crushed because when I counted how many returning starters in 2025 there'll be, I named Jordan Davis a starter and Milton Williams played more snaps. And somebody's like, "Oh, you're an idiot," because Milton Williams is the real starter. With the rotational run that they do, does it really matter who's on the field for the first play? Or I would expect at this point Ojulari to have a decent snap count, but he's not going to, at this point, out-snap Hunt or Nolan Smith, in my opinion. I expect Jalix Hunt to have more snaps per game, percentage-wise, than Ojulari, but I expect him to be number 3 on the team for sure. I think Jordan Davis' future is in his hands. Simple. Can't pay him, trade him, and get draft picks for him. So here's the thing, though. You got till May 10th or whatever, May 12th, I forget the exact date, to pick up his 5th-year option. We forget he's about to enter his 4th season in the NFL. Are you going to let him go in on the final year of his deal and then hit free agency? Are you going to pick up that 5th-year option, which is like $12 million? Are you going to decline it but give him a shorter 3-year extension? Like, what do you do with Jordan Davis is almost as big of a question mark this offseason as how to save the money for Jalen Carter next offseason. And I don't know how you justify $12.5 million next year or whatever it is for Jordan Davis. But I also don't know how you just let him walk. There's got to be a price tag that fits to extend Jordan Davis this offseason. The fact that they haven't picked up his fifth-year option yet at this point tells me something. You're looking at, like is Jordan Davis worth a 3-year, $19-20 million extension? Would Jordan Davis sign that? I don't even know if Jordan Davis would accept that. What Jordan Davis thinks of himself. It also attracts better players on one-year deals if they're going to cash out. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, come and play in our great system, in our great culture, and then you get paid. Josh Sweat's a perfect example of that. Bet on himself on a one-year deal last year. Made almost $80 million this offseason. Every NFL team has the same salary cap issues. The franchise quarterback gets a mega contract, and the rest of the elite team gets in where they fit in. Yeah. But the thing is, the salary cap on the hit on the quarterback here is not affecting the Eagles. Excuse me. Because Howie structures those contracts for Jalen Hurts in a way where it still frees up plenty of room to sign our guys. Whereas in Cincinnati, you've got 45% almost of your salary cap committed to your quarterback and 2 wide receivers. That's why they can't build a great defense or a great offense. Sweat played a lot of snaps. I'd like to see a taller run defender in the rotation. Absolutely. I didn't write down defensive end snaps. I'm going to write that down. That'll be something for next week. But I wrote down because of the loss of Milton Williams, because the first 4 top 30 visits have all been O-line. But I still feel like defensive tackle should be the biggest priority on first pick in the draft. You lost 501 snaps of Milton Williams. And everyone just assumes Moro Ojomo is going to fill that role. But I don't think real fans understand that Moro Ojomo only played 115, 114 less snaps than Milton Williams. So, yeah, maybe Moro Ojomo could fill in 125 of those, but you still got 300-plus snaps that you got to replace. Jordan Davis ain't going to take them on. Jalen Carter can't take any more. So I wrote down the defense of tackle position, not the defensive end edge on the snap counts. You got to find a place or a way or a person to replace 300, 400 snaps. And I don't know if it's Thomas Booker. Moro Ojomo's not taking on that much more. So it's going to be interesting, how that plays out. You can officially cross Dion off your draft big board for the Birds as a backup nose tackle. His testing numbers were so bad. I don't think I have even, selected him once in my million-run mock drafts just yet. We're going to run a mock draft in a few minutes here, too, as well, guys. I don't know. Ojulari and Uche are on one-year deals. I think it's still a big need. I think defensive end edge is absolutely a big need. Don't think it's not. I think if they trade Bryce Huff, then it's definitely a big need as well. And I say that because Bryce Huff, they're going to go in the next season, if he's still on this team, hoping that he can turn a corner. We don't have the confidence in it, but they're hoping he can turn a corner. Trenches draft for the Eagles this year, and that's a good thing. In the trenches where you build champions. Rick, I've said it I'm coming up close to my 5-year anniversary of my first podcast, but I've been saying it since day one as an Eagles fan. I love trench warfare, which is just big offensive lines, big, strong, tough defensive lines. That's growing up in the 80s. That's growing up in the Buddy Ryan era. On defense. That's just what it is. And that is how you win. You feel bad for Jordan Davis. I think he wants to be a great player. He just can't figure out how to get in shape. I don't know. It looked like he's coming to camp in shape. It's not getting into shape. I think it's staying in shape is Jordan Davis's problem. I also don't think Jordan Davis is a prototypical perfect fit for a Vic Fangio-style defense, maybe. Maybe that's something to it. I also just don't know what you do. I feel bad because he probably thinks he's good enough to get a fifth-year option, to get a bigger payday. I just don't know how the Eagles, with their system, does that. And for all the good that Clint Hurt has done developing a Jomo, and Milton Williams, he hasn't been able to figure out, unlock the Jordan Davis situation. So, I put the defensive line, tackle and edge, as so far my biggest concern 2 weeks into the offseason. What's good, TMZ? We're trying to talk as much football. Got a great guest coming up in about 40 minutes here. Jordan Davis is what he is, a decent defensive tackle. Not horrible, but not great. I think he's got potential to be better than decent. I don't think he's got the potential to be great, but I think he's got the potential to be a vital part of this thing. I just don't know if you're going to get much more. I think his stats will never jump off the page. I think he does do well in his snap counts. I think he draws a lot of double teams. He opens up a lot of lanes for other guys to get into the backfield. I just think he is what he is. Jordan Davis is a run-blocking guy, and with running becoming a bigger part of the game now. That's a great point. Great point, Duck. At some point we're going to play the Detroit Lions in the playoffs, and they're two-headed running monsters there, specifically Jamar Gibbs. You need to be able to stop the run in the NFL nowadays. I don't even know, running back-wise, who we're going to be facing next year. You're going to see running backs go in the first round again this year in the draft. The league's shifting towards a running league. I think it's a great point, Duck, from you right here. Eagles' philosophy is we will pay offensive players big. You got to buy D. We just switch out in the draft. That's not true. They're going to pay Jalen Carter a crap ton of money. They gave Zach Bond a very big contract to play linebacker and stay here in Philadelphia. So I don't think that they just ignore paying defensive players. They spent a lot of money a few years ago on James Bradbury and Darius Slay. It didn't work out for James Bradbury. Darius Slay played well this year. They gave a big contract last offseason to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to come back to Philly to play safety. So they do pay defense. It's not as much as they do on offense. It's still an offensive league. It may be shifting to a running league, but it's still an offensive-based league. So you got to have a great offense. You got to be able to put up 40 on the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. Taking care of his body and being able to perform is the most important part of being a professional athlete. Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like he takes care of his body in the offseason, mister. The problem is that for some reason, he can't maintain it, Jordan Davis. And that's definitely an issue. What's up, Anthony? How you doing? Bryce Huff got a big free agent deal as well. Yes, that makes sense. Anthony, you're the first one to ask for Shane Haff. Shane Haff will be on at 9 a.m. So stay tuned. That's 36 minutes away. We'll get his thoughts on this here. All of this. I also think safety is still a huge concern. Think about it. Behind Reed Blankenship, who I still think that none of us really truly know what Reed Blankenship is or how good he is. Right now on the roster, you've got Sidney Brown, Tristan McCollum, Lewis Seen, and Andre Sam. That's it in the safety room. And I know it's early. I know it's 2 weeks in. But I'm just trying to figure out where the weaknesses are 2 weeks in on this team. Safety is an issue. And I know everybody keeps saying Justin Simmons this and Justin Simmons that. But we talked about Justin Simmons the same way we are this offseason, last offseason. And it didn't come to fruition for one reason or another. Money? I don't know. But you can't go into next season without adding a playmaker at safety. At least a solid veteran that has playmaking experience at safety. No offense to Sidney Brown, but it's an issue. So excited, Shane. Hey, look, thank you. We love Shane here. The Eagles are too light at edge, Keith says. We need to draft some traditional 260 to 275 defensive ends. The problem with that, Keith, in my opinion, and I get what you're saying, because that's the older way, the traditional way, is that Vic Fangio's style, you've got to be athletic enough, like a Jalen Hunt or a Nolan Smith, who are much smaller than that, to be able to drop into coverage. A 275-pound defensive end is not dropping into coverage. And that's what Vic Fangio expects out of his guys on the edge. You need guys in that 250 to 255 range that are athletic, that run like a safety, but get after the quarterback in another way. You know what I mean? So I get what you're saying. I agree we're light at edge. But I also feel like if we go the way we're talking here, then Vic Fangio would have to pivot his style versus finding guys that fit his style. How many first-round picks would you trade for prime Reggie White? Oh, my God. Literally every one of them. A lot. Reggie White, man, was a mean guy. Bad mofo. One of the, if you had to build a Mount Rushmore players and take your dislike of Reggie White out for leaving Philly for Green Bay, would Reggie White be on the Mount Rushmore? He would definitely be in the top 3 defensive players of all time. You have to say it's either Reggie White or Lawrence Taylor. Eagles may want to have Davis sit with a therapist. I think he has anxiety during the season, which causes him to overeat, that added with increase in activity. Look, so I don't know if he's got an eating disorder, so to speak, or an anxiety issue. But, Duck, you've been watching me long enough to know that I've been preaching that it should be a requirement for every professional athlete to see a sports psychologist or therapist every single year, multiple times a year, maybe weekly. I really, truly believe it is something that NFL, NBA, MLB should do. They don't, but they should do it. I honestly think Davis is a necessary evil. He is an integral part of the machine. But see, here's the thing, and I think he's integral too, especially where the NFL's going, Peanut. But what do you do with him? Do you pick up his 5th-year option at $12 million or whatever it is? Do you give him an extension? Would he even accept a cheaper 3-year, $20 million extension? Or do you let him play out the last year of his deal and then risk losing him in free agency? They're your 3 options. I think we're going to do a Jordan Davis poll on Twitter after the show, and we'll check back on it on Monday. Remind me on Monday's show. We'll check back in on it. Jalen Carter can play every snap. Davis gets winded after one long drive and needs a sub. Yeah, I mean, 2 totally different forms of athletes right there. Yeah, Sweat and BG were our traditional defensive ends, for sure. And again, thank you, Brandon Graham, for 15 years. But they also struggled. They were also told to drop back into coverage, and they struggled at it. Power equals force times velocity. Sounds like Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt. Yeah, I'm super hyped, Marshawn, for those 2 to be our top guys on the outside. They're not the traditional guys, size-wise, that Keith is talking about. But I'm extremely, extremely excited for the future of those 2 guys on the defensive end. Jalen Hunt, just a guy that played safety, that's now your defensive end. The league is not ready for Jalen Hunt's next step, in my opinion, and Nolan Smith. Reggie White did what he had to do for his family. Eagles weren't going to pay, and the White look. Grown-up Phil understands what Reggie White did. Preteen Phil, what year was that? Is it 91? No, 92 he left, right? So that would have been 92. Would have been 12-year-old Phil. Did not understand what Reggie White was doing, and 12-year-old Phil was screaming at the TV, probably 6 ABC, 6 o'clock news, when the news was announced that Reggie White was leaving. Myles Garrett is 275. He's a special character right there, though. Special breed. Good morning, Eric. The gatekeeper is here. I'll pick up the 5th and let the season play out. So you're willing to commit $12.5 million next offseason to Jordan Davis when you know you've got to pay Jalen Carter? No one's answered my question. How much money will Jalen Carter get next offseason? When you've got to pay Jalen Carter record-breaking money, you're going to commit $12 million to it, to Jordan Davis. Just remember that. Just think about that. Davis, pay him 5th year and get another year of data. And I get that. I think you get more value out of giving him a 3-year extension at $20 million than a 1-year, 5th-year option at 12. I forget what the number is. It's 12, 12 and a half, somewhere around there. It's clear that you guys don't know what Davis does. We all know what he does. He's not going to pop the stat sheet. He takes a lot of double teams. He pushes the line back. We see that. But still, the question is, how much can you pay him considering his limitations on the amount of time he can stay on the field? We don't doubt his talent. We doubt his ability to up from last year was supposed to be his biggest year. He only played 37.06% of the snaps. You can't commit huge money, Keith, to someone that can't get over 40%. I mean, you would need to pay Jordan Davis what he's probably worth. You would need at least 45 to 50% snap count from him. Milton Williams played almost 48% last year. You would need that out of Jordan Davis to pay him a big contract or a longer-term contract. That's the problem, Keith. The problem is what he does, the amount of times he does it versus the dollars you can spend on him. And I love Jordan Davis. I do. I was not expecting physics equations today. Yeah. I took AP physics back in junior year of high school. I failed the AP test. I did ace the class, but I failed the AP test. I think Jordan Davis will be in better condition this season. Well, he's been in better condition every year, but then he doesn't maintain it, Eric, which would be great for Carter. It would be great for Carter if Jordan Davis became what he fully reached his potential. Smith played well down the stretch, and Hunt surprised me with his play. I think it's okay, but it definitely needs more help. Safety is, according to Peanut, the biggest question mark. Safety's a big issue. I am not confident at this point with where the safety room is. And I don't even know if Justin Simmons is the answer at this point. I'm not sure where you go at this point. Besides, you will find out a lot without Graham pushing everyone around. I don't think we're going to miss Brandon Graham on the field as much as Brandon Graham in the locker room, the leader. In fact, is Jacksonville or Patriots will overvalue D-Tech. That's a fact. Some stupid team, if you don't extend him or pick up the option after next season, no matter what he does, there will be a team that will give Jordan Davis and see his, physical skill set and be like, we can pay him and we can get the most out of him. And that won't be something Howie will be able to do. So that brings in the fourth option. Do you trade him? Which I don't think his trade value equals what you would get out of him. You see how he does this year and makes the next step and then make the decision next offseason to trade or extend. But just as TMZ said, and he actually said something pretty intelligent at this point, someone will overpay him and then you lose him. Now, you overpay him, you lose him, you get the comp pick the following year. I get that, but it's something that you risk. Let's break down the force equals man. No, I'm not going to try to do physics this morning. You have to pay him, but how much? Like, I threw out the random number of 3 years, $20 million. He's going to get way more than that in the end from other teams. I think Jordan Davis needs a specialized chef and personal trainer. He can't be trusted to make his own eating decisions. Do we know if that's really what it is? I don't know. Righteous delusional Eagles fans called Jordan Davis a bust. Thank you, Mitchie Poo, for that. And how are we still at 473? I don't know. We gained 11 subscribers on Monday, during this show. And we've stuck there all week long, K1. What's up with that? Is it because I don't give enough eye contact? Please, guys, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that share button. It's free. It's free to do. He gets Big Dom for food and nutrition. He will have a long and effective career. I don't know. Big Dom looks like he eats a little bit. Freddie Burns, what's up, my man? I think I had a pretty cool picture on his on the YouTube graphic for his press box radio appearance last night. And Big Al, great job with Chet filling in for Bill Furman. Well done, well done. I will laugh if Diggs comes over to Eagles for Prove Me year. No, he's not going to do that. Davis plays like 15 snaps to be effective, and he is a top 10 pick. Stop it. So you're on the end. So again, Fred, the question is, what do you do with him? We got into a very specific conversation now on Jordan Davis. You've got four options. You trade him, you pick up his fifth-year option, you let him play out his contract this year and see what happens, or do you give him a short-term extension if he's willing to accept it? What do you do? I think what he does in those so-called 15 snaps is really elite. But you can't pay big money to someone that can only play 15 snaps. That's the quandary there. Carter will get his fourth, fifth-year option money. He goes 2 years. You're not going to pick up his fifth-year option, Jalen Carter. Well, you are, but instead of paying him the fifth-year option, he will get a huge extension next offseason. He will. He's not going to play on his fifth-year option, all right? He's going to be extended before that fifth year starts, and it's going to be a massive number, okay? Massive number. I have been a Jordan Davis fan since we drafted him. His specialty is blocking and filling the line. He's athletic enough to run down some of the most – I mean, he did run down Josh Allen. That is honestly – him running down Josh Allen in 2023, what was that, like week 12? That was basically the downward spiral of his career. He was ascending. He caught Josh Allen from behind, and he's falling off a cliff down. Let him play it out and let him walk. The only thing that does is it eventually gets you a comp pick. Read what I wrote. Okay, sorry, I didn't read the whole thing. Sorry. A lot of comments to try to go through. 2 years worth of franchise money as a guarantee, approximately. Okay, so you're saying $80 million guaranteed. That hold on, let me check my list here. Let me check my list of notes here. So $80 million guaranteed would put him under Chris Jones' money. Actually, it would put him under Christian Wilkins' money as well. Christian Wilkins' deal is $82.5 guaranteed right now. I think it's going to be closer to that 95 to 100 guaranteed personally, Keith. That would be my expectations for a deal. Just based off of the way contracts keep going up, et cetera, et cetera. Salary caps keep going up. Jalen Carter continues to grow as a leader as well. That's a problem. Get the comp pick on Jordan Davis. I mean, and as TMC said a few minutes ago, a team like New England or Atlanta, a dumb team that doesn't know how to run an offseason or a front office, will give Jordan Davis a lot more than 3 years, $20 million if he goes into next offseason a free agent. Just going to say, which you won't be able to match. And you'll be able to get a third or fourth round comp pick for him. I guess that's what you do then. We're going to run a poll on this on Twitter, Freddie, after the show. And we'll see. We'll see what the people say. And we'll talk about it on Monday. He signed a nice rookie contract. He needs to invest more into his physical fitness. He needs to invest in how to maintain it. Because every single offseason now for 2 years in a row, he's come into training camp and been reported by every Eagles media member. Best shape of his life. The tough part about Jordan Davis are the brief flashes are amazing. Pass rush, his run defense is elite, and the pass rush tools are there. This is a huge year for him. It's a huge year for his career. It's a huge offseason for the Eagles to figure out whether his career is going to be here. That's how I say that. He's under Eagles control. He is not going to be a free agent. Jalen Carter? No, he's not going to be a free agent, Jalen Carter. But on the flip side, you want to pay your guys before the price tag gets too much. And you pay him next offseason, Jalen Carter, versus 2 off seasons, because that 2 off seasons can tack on another $50 million. You don't want to become the Bengals or the Cowboys, having to overpay to keep your guys. You pay them as soon as you can so you can keep them at a cheaper price, a better market price. Howie probably approaches DT2 like he does with the O-line. They'll find toolsy guys that are raw and get coached up, but also benefit mightily from playing next to Jalen Carter. He got his Jalen Carter. Now let's just keep the pieces rotating around him. Right? Is that kind of what you're getting at? We got all those first-round picks with the Sixers, hoping to get the next superstar. And then you work around them. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for the Sixers. But with the Eagles, it might have worked out with Jalen Carter. Oh, we're definitely investing. And that's another question I've thrown out here, Freddie, is what's that dollar amount going to look like? And I've given the dollar amounts of Chris Jones, Myles Garrett, Christian Wilkins, what their contracts are. Where will he fall in the pantheon of top five paid defensive players? I don't even know, Keith, if Howie would even start the negotiation process that low at $80 million. And to me and you, $80 million sounds like unheard of money. But when $80 million guaranteed doesn't even make him now it's with the Jamar Chase deal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't even make him the 6th highest paid player in the NFL. It doesn't even make him the 6th highest paid defensive player in the NFL. Hell, what's his name? Dirk Stingley got $89 million guaranteed. last week or earlier this week, whenever that was. Jalen Carter is a top 5 defensive player in the NFL right now. I think that money's going to be higher than that. I think you'll be surprised at how big that guaranteed dollar amount is for him. The safety room is light. Dallas Goedert is in limbo, and the defensive ends are in need of bodies. So let's talk about Davis' fifth-year option. Well, because the defensive line is a big weakness right now. You still got 501 snaps of Milton Williams, Peanut, to replace. 501. A rookie isn't stepping in and playing 501 snaps next year. Okay? Not going to happen. Ajomo is, yeah, sure. But Freddie, again, I said I know you're late to the show. Milton Williams played 501 snaps, 47.85% of the snaps. Moro Ajomo still played 388 snaps next year. He is not replacing 501 snaps. At most, he'll replace 125, 130 of those snaps, which means you still got to replace over 350 snaps somewhere. And who's that going to be? Jordan Davis can't pick up that many more snaps. We realize that. So who's going to pick up the snaps of Milton Williams? That's why I think defensive tackle is such a big issue. I think D-tackle is a need, but I'm not sure it's a first-round need. I think Howie will likely use value outside corner more. I find it hard. I think they're really going to go into this season hoping that Keely Ringo is the guy on the outside. I do. I truly do. They're going to add depth, maybe draft a later guy, but it won't be a top choice. The headline number can be whatever. Okay. Jalen Carter going to keep getting his DT2 paid. Might even get Milton Williams back into the 3 area. He gets cut, yeah. I'm not sleeping on Thomas Booker. Are we really going to go into next year with Thomas Booker playing 350 snaps? I mean, I didn't even add him to my list here. I think he played just over 100 snaps last year. Why can't Ajomo? I mean, why can't Ajomo go from 388 snaps to 889 snaps? Because, again, if Ajomo takes over Milton Williams' 501, then you got to replace more Ajomo's 300. I don't think people realize how many snaps Moro Ajomo played last year. He played a lot of snaps last year, a lot more than people realize. So, if Ajomo replaces Milton Williams, who's replacing Ajomo? Okay? Because that's a lot of snaps, 388 there. Whoever that ends up being. Yeah. I'm setting myself for devastation when Starks are available at 32 and how he goes with a different player. Look, I know everybody's hyping up Starks. So, I would love that. That would solidify the safety room, drafting a safety in the first round. It would. Love Booker. Yeah, I mean, I hate Thomas Booker for a very, very selfish reason, Freddie. Because in preseason last year, he got a sack. And he didn't get down on his knees and do a spin-a-rooney like Booker would do as the five-time WCW champion. You got to do a spin-a-rooney as your sack celebration. He did not, so Thomas Booker is dead to me, just so you know. Jalen Carter agent is Drew Rosenhaus. That man is going to take us to the cleaners. Drew is show. Yeah, he is. That is true. That is very true. 16 likes, 16 watching. That's all. It's free. There should be 1 like for every player. Now there's 17 watching. There should be 17 likes. It's free to hit that like button, that subscribe button, and that share button. It's free. It literally costs you nothing to do that. Then we rotate players to keep them fresh and decrease injuries overall. We always do a great job of rotating the defensive players. We rock, Peanut. You guys all rock. Give yourself a round of applause right now. All right? Each and every one of you, give yourself a round of applause here. That's good. Look, I expected a spin-a-rooney as soon as I heard the name Thomas Booker was on our defensive line. I didn't get the spin-a-rooney. I am disappointed that I didn't get a spin-a-rooney. Just saying. Everybody's got their celebration. Why can't, while he's on the ground, he spins himself up, lands on his knee with his hand out, just like Booker T used to do. Jordan Davis needs to pick up some of the snaps. How many, though? So he played 37% of the snaps. That was 388. Milton Williams played 47%, 501. So maybe he could get up to 47%. So maybe he could pick up 125 of them. But then you're still looking at 200, 300 more. If Ajomo picks up 100 and Jordan Davis picks up 100, that's still 300 snaps to replace. Is Booker T? going to pick up 300 of those snaps. We're getting all the likes. We're not getting the subscribers out. That's what we need. Man, it's like a grind. This segment should be time-stamped and titled "Oh Snap." Spinaroonie would have been hilarious, but could have been botched like a pedigree. It could have been. It could have been. I wanted a Spinaroonie. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Hitting the like and subscribe button is good for the soul. All right, real quick, what we're going to do here before Shane Haff comes on, we're going to run mock draft trending in the AM 3.0 here as we're talking, okay? We're going to run another mock draft. We're going to grade it, get Shane to grade it. 160 for 4 years, 80 guaranteed. He gets 90 over 3 and gets negotiated after his 6th year in the league. I think you got to up that guaranteed money at a minimum to 90, maybe a little bit more. That's just my opinion. But again, I'm no expert. I'm not a cap expert at all, that's for sure. So maybe. So we're going to start the mock draft here in the background here. When it's the Eagles' turn to draft, we'll look at the trades. We'll look to see who's available. We also need to look at maintaining Carter going forward. Exactly. How much longer do you want him playing 80% of snaps every single year? They can keep the Spinaroonie if he makes the 5-time champ. That's true. That's true. He does got to be 5-time champion. So we're here at the mock draft. Eagles pick at 32. Before we look at the trades, you got Loveland, tight end, available. Walter Nolan, who I know a lot of people like. Kenneth Grant. You got a bunch of guys available there. Mike Green from Marshall. Trade offers. We've got 32 for 56.62 and a third. We've got 32 for 48 and a second. I mean, to me, because of everything we talked about, I want to go Walter Nolan here in this position because I want to solidify that defensive tackle line. You go get Walter Nolan right now. Now we don't have to have this question. He can pick up 300 snaps right from the get-go. We got trade back. We say take the Miami trade. I'm a man of the people. So if that's what the consensus says, take the Miami deal. Consensus says trade back. We're taking the Miami deal. So now we're sitting at 42 before we look at the trades. Now you got Kenneth Grant available here at 48. Next pick is 64. Mike Green's also available. Okay, so Grant and Green, they're your two best options. 48 dropping back to 1. We might take that Bengals pick just to pick up an extra 7. We're not taking this 49ers option at all. So where do we go now? Michigan, Kenneth Grant. I think K1 was trading back on the last one. I agree here. Kenneth Grant at this spot is great. Who's the Michigan guy available? Is that that is Kenneth Grant. Yeah, duh. Nick, hold on, let me check here. Where is he on the list? I don't even see him on the list. Ridiculous athlete, Howie pick. Take Connolly to shore up the and Connerly. Is it Connerly? He has, just so you know, Josh Connerly has been one of the names brought in for a top 30 visit so far with the Eagles. I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going to trade back one spot with Cincinnati, pick up a 7th-round pick, and then I either get Grant or Connerly. That's what we do here. All right, so I did that. Both are still on the board. I picked up a 7th, and we're still on the board there. So let me just double-check the next set of trade offers here. Go back 2 more spots and pick up a 4th. No, we're not going to do that. But we might do this. Trade back 2 more spots. We still don't have any players on this team. Dives is not a fan of the O-lineman. So far, only 4 top 30 players have been officially announced. And all 4 of them are offensive linemen, which is very interesting to me. I'm going to take another risk here. Pick up another pick for next year. All right? We're going to trade back 2 spots. Now we're going to take this. It's either Grant or Connerly. We're going to go Grant. Because I think defensive tackle at this point is much more important. We appease a lot of people with that pick right there and fill a lot of holes. Oh, I took the Denver trade like that. Walter Nolan is almost as good as Jalen Carter. I wonder if all those teams are going to let him slide. Yeah, the one thing is this mock draft thing is the only free one for 7 rounds. The other one you got to pay for. So we go with this one because it's free. But I don't know if Walter Nolan falls either. We'll see how it plays out. All right, we're at pick 64. You got a defensive tackle. You got a couple wide receivers. You got a guard. another defensive tackle, running backs. Where we're at here at pick 64, end of round 2. Again, we've only taken 1 pick so far in this draft. We got a trade offer, 64 and 161 for 81. I don't know if I want to do that or not. Where you could go anywhere here at 64. Where are we going? Tate, baby. Tate, baby. Take the guard from the offensive guard. That's 2 for 2. People asking for the guard. We do need a guard. We do need offensive line help. Built through the trenches. Tate Ratledge is a monster athlete. All right, so we got 3 straight Tate picks, so we're taking Tate. Now we got to wait till number 96 comes up, and we'll see what's available at number 96. This is the draft of the people. Exactly. Take the guy with the hardest name to pronounce, basically, right? Exactly. All right, so now we're at pick 96. We got a trade offer, 96, 168 for 118 and a future 4th, 96 for 119 and a 4th. We got a lot of future picks. Now's kind of where we got to build this year's team. Is Gunnar Helm the guy from Texas? I know a lot of people like him. You go edge with Jordan Birch. You go Dorian Dives. You talked about cornerback. Is a cornerback like Dorian Strong available here to be taken? Gunnar Helm. Yes to Gunnar Helm. Everybody wants Gunnar Helm. Great blocker plus receiver. This is hard to judge because if Dallas Goedert is here next year, I find it hard to see them drafting a tight end this year because they've already spent money on some other backup tight end. I don't know. But I also don't think Dallas Goedert will be here because I think he'll be traded on draft day. We got 1 pick for Cam here. Who are some of the cornerbacks available? Well, the top-rated cornerback available right now is Dorian Strong at this spot. I guess I could sort by defense and cornerback here. Dorian Strong, Zy Alexander, Kobe Bryant. We're sitting here at pick 96. They're your top cornerbacks available. I agree to take Helm with you guys. I do agree to take the tight end here because I do think come post-draft, Dallas Goedert will not be on this team. Or Grant Calcaterra won't be on this team. One or the other. So I agree to take Gunnar Helm. But that's up to you guys. Because I'm making this a draft of the people. Have we heard any teams interested in Dallas Goedert? We haven't yet, honestly, heard any of that. No, not interested. I like Quinton Riley as a backup nickel cornerback, but now, yeah, we'll go Gunnar Helm here. We got to fire through this because Shane Haff will be joining us soon here. And I want him to be able to grade this draft. Now we go to 134. We're way back. We could trade 134 and 168 for that. No, we're not worried about that. And this is where we're at now. Do we go with an edge? We do need edge. We do need linebacker. This is what's available with this pick, guys. I mean, again, I firmly believe that edge is an issue. So maybe we take the edge rusher here. I won't lie. This guy, Pal Ryland, has not been on my board. 6'2", 258, a 911 on his RAS score, standout defensive player, advanced edge rushing skills, unpredictability, and consistency, effectively disrupts offensive lines. I mean, this is a pretty good write-up on the guy. Is Pal Ryland the pick here? I like it. Yeah, we're doing. He's not in the backstage yet, but I want to get through it by the time he gets here. Pal Ryland is nice. I would say, based off his write-up, that's the play. And, Duck, you agree as well, so we'll go with that. Now we're waiting for pick 161. All right? We're waiting for pick 161 here. All right, so we're back on the board. We still got 161, 164. We got 3 picks here. No trades. So top available is another defensive tackle, running back. We do need help at safety. You got Clemson safety, R.J. Minkins. No information on him. He does have a high RAS score. Go running back. You could double dip. I read about this guy before. Hold on. Claps in the pocket. While size can help him at times. Size is an issue. Maybe. I have read about Howard Cross a few times. R.J. Minkins, no information. Dylan Sampson, 5'8", 200-pound running back. No trades available. How did he fall? Dominguez Knight. Where is he? I think he went already since that last thing there. Let Dallas Goedert finish his contract or at least wait until someone You're not going to pay him what he's scheduled to make next year. You got to either renegotiate or move on from him. Phil, have you ever met Seth Joyner? I have not. I have hit him up on Twitter by just commenting because I want to get Seth Joyner on this show. His DMs are not open to the public, so I can't just hit him up that way. So if you got a connection to Seth Joyner, I'd love to get Seth Joyner on this show. What cornerbacks and running backs are available? Well, the top running back available is Dylan Sampson. Overall, it's Sampson and then another guy, Kyle. We got 3 picks in the next 6 here. Top cornerbacks available at this point, Jabbar Muhammad and Upton Stout. K1 says Howard Cross. That's what I would have gone with. As a second guy, I agree. Cross is the guy. All right, let's fire through this really quickly here because Shane Haff is here, and I want to get his opinions on our mock draft. We'll fire through this. We'll take the top running back, the top safety off the board. And then I can run through the rest of the draft right there and go from there. Hold on. Let's see. Is it? Oh, we got one more pick there. One more pick. 168. I thought we were done at 168. We'll take the top quarterback available. All right. We're going to take that off the screen for a second. We're going to bring in our special guest of the day here. Joining me because you asked for him, and I give the people what they want. I'm Anthony, Podcast Network. Shane Haff. Good morning, Shane. How you doing today?
Good morning, Phil. I'm doing good. How about you, man?
Fantastic. We've been trying to use this show as a 2-week gauge of where the Eagles are in free agency and in their offseason, talking about their weaknesses, talking about if this offseason so far tells us anything about where the Eagles are looking, at the draft. So big picture to start us off, how do you gauge the offseason and the story it's telling about the Eagles so far?
Yeah, it's very different from last offseason. Of course, last season, they're making the big impact signings, going for guys like Saquon Barkley and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and things like that. And obviously a very different Bryce Huff, I guess. I forget Bryce Huff, but Bryce Huff was pretty forgettable, if we're being honest. Yeah. So this year's different. And I know a lot of people were really there was a lot of angst on Eagles Twitter as free agency started to unfold. But this has been a lot more like what I expected free agency to be like this time around. I think so many teams take swings on big name guys in free agency and they pay these big contracts and everybody just equates like, oh, everybody's signing people. Everybody's getting better than us. And they forget the Bryce Huff of it all, that a lot of these big name free agent contracts turn out like that. And so I think, you make a splash signing when the market is right. And the Eagles did that last year with Saquon. They missed it with Bryce Huff. But for the most part, I think free agency is about filling out your roster to not have, major deficiencies that you get pigeonholed into. We must draft an edge rusher in the first round, no matter what, whether the value is good or not. And you see that with, the Eagles edge rusher room was looking pretty bleak after Brandon Graham retires, Josh Sweat leaves. We don't trust Bryce Huff. And you're looking at, man, Nolan Smith and Jalex Hunt's really it, huh? And they go get Josh Uche for $1.9 million. And, Josh Uche he had a really good 2022. Other than that, he hasn't been great. You go get Azeez Ojulari for 1 year, $4 million. And I think that was insane. I think Azeez is a good player, but you see him making moves like that, bringing in Doria Jackson to compete with Keely Ringo on the outside. And I think a lot of their moves are about competition and depth, but they don't make them have to do certain things. Like the contract you pay to Doria Jackson doesn't mean you have to start him. Right. Keely Ringo can win that job and you can play him. You could draft a cornerback in the first round if there's one you really like at 32 and just start him. It's the same thing at edge rusher. So I think that's what this offseason has been all about. It's been about filling out depth, adding competition, and going into the draft without an obvious, we must draft this position in the first round type of need.
I had a couple questions lined up, but you mentioned Bryce Huff there a few moments ago and how we spent big on him last offseason. And K1 had just said this. I, for one, am not giving up on Bryce Huff. I know a lot of Eagles fans just want the Eagles to move on from Bryce Huff and just eat the cap hit, trade him, get rid of him, whatever. But is there any potential that the Eagles can find a way to maximize what Bryce Huff can do and have him turn the corner? Like maybe his story in Philadelphia hasn't been fully written yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's always possible. This is a guy that was a good rotational pass rusher for the Jets. And, he didn't have a ton of snaps, but when he played, his like per snap metrics were some of the best in the league in terms of high quality pressures and things like that. And so it's certainly possible. He was always coming to Philadelphia, changing schemes and being asked to maintain that efficiency over more volume. And he struggled at both of those. Then he got injured. And I do think it started to get a little bit better prior to him getting injured. I think the biggest thing with Huff is that he just can't play the run. Like there's a lot of clips of him from this year getting blown up by tight ends and washed out of plays. And with the way the Eagles want to play their defense, having two high safeties, light boxes, you have got to be able to play the run. I don't know that that's Bryce Huff's fit. I can't imagine that Huff was a guy that Fangio really wanted into the building to begin with, because it's just not his style of player. So it's certainly possible. I've seen.
Well, is there, as Dives is asking, is there odds that he could get traded by the draft day or on one of the draft days?
Yeah, I mean,
is there any interest around the league? Do people realize that maybe he was a bad fit and might want to take a chance on him?
Yeah, I feel like if the Eagles could get him out of the building for nothing, they should do that, and they would do that because I mean it's pretty clear, right?
Yeah.
Could he turn it around? Yeah, but also he was a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl, and that tells you a lot about where Fangio is at with the guy. So I've kind of said all along I would trade a pick to get Bryce Huff out of the building. It would save you like $16.5 million, not this year, but over the long haul with the way the dead cap and stuff works. Like if you could trade Bryce Huff and a 5th round pick for like a conditional 7th round pick, I would do that in a heartbeat. I think the Eagles would probably like to get rid of him. I just don't know that there's a suitor out there for it. So it's possible. It's also possible that he'll bounce back. I don't think he's a worthless player. Right. I've seen his pass rushing skills on film. I just think it's going to be tough for him to make an impact in Philadelphia, given the scheme that they're asking him to play in.
You talk about, Uche Ojulari, obviously we got Nolan Smith and, Jalix Hunt here, and Dives another great question. He's on fire this morning with his jokes and his questions about the run defense on the edge. I mean, you mentioned that edge is an important thing in the draft to attack, first round or whatever. Are you concerned about the run defense? Brandon Graham, is a big loss on the edge. Josh Sweat's a big loss on the edge, in the run game as well. Ojulari and Uche, while there's potential there, stopping the run's a pretty big, important thing right there.
Yeah, and, that's going to be a key thing to see if they're able to do it this year like they did last year because, like you said, you lose Brandon Graham. Mm-hmm. You probably lose Nakobe Dean. I mean, I don't know where Nakobe Dean's going to be at next season in terms of recovery and if he's going to be able to get on the field. But, Nolan Smith's a great run defender. Surprisingly, he shouldn't be at his stature, but he is. You're still going to have Jordan Davis, Moro Ojomo on the inside can help you out a lot there. You retain Zach Bond, and so Zach Bond gives you the unique ability to walk him down onto the line of scrimmage and get into 5 or 6 man fronts without really changing your base personnel. So that's huge. Cooper DeJean out of the slot is always going to be good in run defense. So the big question marks are that outside edge spot, which I think Azeez Ojulari is a fine run defender. Like he's not spectacular, but he's not a net negative. And then whoever's going to be the other linebacker. And I would guess, as of right now, before the draft, I'd say it's going to be Jeremiah Trotter Jr., because I don't think Nakobe Dean will be back and healthy. And, one of the biggest things for Trotter, he keys run plays really quickly. Like he's got a really high IQ. He can't anchor against offensive line. And so, we'll see if the guys up front are able to eat space for him and him go make plays. It's the same thing for Nakobe Dean, by the way. Like, that's the scouting report on Nakobe Dean. He's small, he's smart, he struggles to get off blocks, and they were able to keep Nakobe Dean clean and let him make some plays. So I'm not super concerned about the run defense. I never expect like an elite defense to be as good the next year because defensive performance just isn't as sticky year over year. But I do think they'll probably be fine as a unit against the run next year.
I'll get to your question, K1, in a second, because I want to ask you about, you mentioned Jordan Davis's name when we're talking about the run there. And randomly, it wasn't part of the original agenda today, but Jordan Davis's name came up. We spent a good 25 minutes talking on the show this morning about what do the Eagles do with Jordan Davis. He's entering his fourth year. They got, till May 10th or whatever to pick up his fifth-year option. Do you let him play out the fourth year? Do you pick up the fifth option? Has he justified maybe a shorter extension instead of the fifth-year option, or you just play it, wait and go, and see what happens with him? Because again, you got the big Jalen Carter extension looming next offseason. I think what you do with Jordan Davis is probably one of the toughest decisions to make for Howie Roseman right now.
Yeah, I would not pick up that fifth round option for starters. That's the fifth round option.
$12.5 million or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not paying Jordan Davis $12.5 million to be a run stuffer. Now, I like Jordan Davis. I think he's a big part of what they're able to do. And, I know people look at the snap counts, played 13 snaps in the conference championship game, 14 snaps in the Super Bowl. The Eagles were winning both of those games in blowouts. And he is more valuable than that snap count shows. I would like to extend Jordan Davis. I'd like to extend him and keep him in Philadelphia, but I'm not doing it anywhere near the top of the market because to this point in his career, he's been a run stuffer that hasn't, he's not a guy that you put on the field to play snaps against the pass. He doesn't have 500 snaps in any season of his career. And so if he takes a contract to come back to Philly as like a run stuffer, I'm fine with that. And I would love that. So I would try to work an extension with him. But we're not.
Would Jordan Davis accept a short, 3-year deal with less than top tier money to stay here in Philadelphia?
Yeah,
I throw the number 3 years out there. I don't know if that's what they would want to do or not. I'm just using that as a starting point there.
Yeah, I don't know what he would accept. Typically, the Eagles have tended to give 4-year extensions to rookies going into that second contract, and so. Would he take a 3 or a 4-year deal at, I don't know, $6-8 million a year? I don't know that he would do that.
I threw out the number 3 years, $20 million earlier in the show, and I don't know if he would accept that.
Yeah,
personally.
I'd sign that. I would bring him back at that in a heartbeat.
I mean, I would too, but I don't know if that would be enough for him. Why wouldn't he just say, all right, well, screw it. I'll play out the fourth year. I'll become a free agent. A dumb team like New England will pay me bigger, and I'll just cash that out like that, and then Eagles get the comp pick. I mean, I think it's a quandary on what to do there.
Yeah, I mean, at most, I don't think he would get a big deal in free agency. Like, you're signing pass rushers big in free agency. I don't think anybody would sign him. I'm not even sure the contract he would sign would be enough to qualify for a comp pick, and so. I guess it's all about what his agent's telling him. And, maybe if his agent's telling him, hey, we can go get you 10 million on the open market. I kind of doubt it, but you never know. And wouldn't fault the guy for taking the swing.
I mean, we see it every offseason that teams overpay. No offense. I've been saying since day one that the Cardinals are going to regret paying $80 million for Josh Sweat because, he's not that. So teams always overspend in free agency when they've got that money to spend there. So we've been talking about all the different weaknesses on the defense. K1's asking about Sidney Brown. Obviously, right now, if the season was to start now, Sidney Brown would be your starting safety opposite of Reed Blankenship. And, I mean, when you look at the names, Sidney Brown, Tristan McCullum, Steen, Andre Sam, that's your safety room behind Reed Blankenship now with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson gone. Where's your confidence level with Sidney Brown? Does Justin Simmons need to be brought in here or a Justin Simmons type to start, or is drafting a high-end safety or bringing in a safety to compete with Sidney Brown the way they need to go?
Yeah, man.
I'm not as high on Sidney Brown the starter as a lot of other people are.
Yeah, I think it's telling that whenever a safety would go down this year, which fortunately there weren't long-term injuries, but you had games where a guy had to leave for, a couple quarters or something like that. That Avonte Maddox came in as the third safety, not Sidney Brown. And maybe that's related to him having a hard time coming off that ACL injury more than it is him as a player. Maybe he is more fully removed from that next season and he's better, but they certainly didn't trust him this year. And you can see why. I mean, he's the type of player that I could see Vic Fangio having a hard time trusting. He loves to fly downhill and hit, but he's not the best tackler and he's not the best in coverage. And those are kind of the two things that Vic Fangio really wants to emphasize: open field tackling and being sound in your coverage. And I see Sidney Brown struggling with both of those. And honestly, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was the same way. So he's like a light version of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson a little bit. And I love Sidney Brown. I would be concerned if you just walk in with him as the starter next season. Now, if you bring in a Justin Simmons or if you draft a safety and Sidney Brown beats him out, fine. That means Sidney Brown played good in training camp. And I want Sidney Brown to succeed. I was higher. I knew who Sidney Brown was when the Eagles drafted him, and a lot of people didn't because he was a safety I really liked that year. And it stinks that he was kind of derailed by injury that rookie season. And I think that bled into this year a little bit, but that's the biggest hole on the defense for me. The biggest thing I'm not sure about, the two things I'm not sure about the most on the whole team is who's safety 2 and who is linebacker 2. I think those are the two biggest questions that remain unanswered, and they're both on that spine of the defense.
I like this comment about, Noom saying it's discipline issue with Sidney. Not like he's not a disciplined person, discipline on the field. And I agree, because I said it from his rookie year. I was saying he doesn't know how to throttle down. Like when you're on special teams, you can go full throttle the whole time. Just run downfield as fast as you can, make the big explosive play. But on defense, you've got to know when to shift gears, depending on what the offense is doing, and he lacks that. But, Justin Simmons' name keeps coming up again for the second straight offseason. And I keep telling myself, like, he wasn't brought in last offseason, even after Chauncey Gardner-Johnson returned, there was a lot of smoke with the Justin Simmons. And here we are again this offseason, the same smoke with Justin Simmons. Maybe we overvalue Justin Simmons as an Eagles fan base in free agency, and maybe he's not the perfect fit. Like, why is Justin Simmons' name constantly coming up, but yet he's never actually brought here?
Well, his name's constantly coming up because he's played for Fangio before. Yeah. So I think it was when Vic was a head coach in Denver, which is so long ago. Justin Simmons is definitely an older guy, but he's a guy that you can bring in, and it would fit those other things we talked about at the start. He's going to bring you a base level of competency at safety. He's going to bring you competition. It doesn't preclude you from drafting a safety, some of those sorts of things. And so, they had, like you said, they had a chance last year when Fangio came into the building and they didn't do it. And I kind of doubt they do it this time around too, just because there's been, just like you said, there's been Justin Simmons smoke for so long, but it's definitely that connection because he's played for Fangio before.
You talk about with the first pick in the first round or whatever they do with it, obviously Dives and Anthony. Anthony, by the way, was the one that asked the most for you to be on this show, just so you know. Anthony has been pounding the table, and I don't think Anthony realized. I think you may be the most frequent returning guest on this show over the last 3.5 years I've been doing this. So, Anthony, this is not the first time with Shane here. What are the odds that Howie bucks his trend again and maybe drafts safety? Starks, Nick, any of these guys that might be there around 32. What's the odds that, he changed his trend and drafted a cornerback in Quinion Mitchell last year. Maybe he goes against the norm and drafts a safety in the first round.
Yeah, well, first of all, shout out Anthony.
We love Anthony. Anthony's a great guy. I love him.
Yeah, absolutely. Second of all, I will never suppose that there's anything Howie won't do again, because if I was on a show, we'll say 13 months ago, if I was on this show 13 months ago and you asked me, I would have said the Eagles just don't draft cornerbacks in the first round. I also would have told you that they don't pay running backs. I literally not famously, because I'm not famous, but famously
You're
for
famous
me.
in your own head, right?
Yeah, famously for me, like 4 hours before the Saquon Barkley signing broke, there was smoke about that, and I tweeted that I'll believe that when I see it because Howie doesn't believe in paying running backs. Then they paid Saquon Barkley. I would have told you
I still, by the way, just so you know, I still get crushed for a tweet similar to that right before the signing down saying I would not see Howie paying that kind of money. And people still pull up that tweet and share to me like, you're an idiot for saying this. I'm like, whatever. We all get one wrong occasionally, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I also said that, I would have told you the Eagles just don't pay linebackers. And here we are with the top of the market linebacker contract. So I will never say what Howie won't do. But if I were going to point out tendencies, it's that the Eagles have tended to not value safety that highly. They haven't paid safeties. They haven't drafted safeties. They've let Chauncey Gardner-Johnson out of the building twice when he wasn't really going to make that much. They haven't signed Reed Blankenship yet. So we'll see. I know that's the hot thing that everybody's talking about right now. And I do think it's a hole in the defense right now, potentially. And, safeties are very important in Vic Fangio's scheme. The quote about it is that, the safeties are the queens on Vic Fangio's chessboard, that he does so much with them and he asks them to do so much. And so, maybe it's possible, maybe they're valued a little differently now. And maybe they'll end up going after one of these first round safeties. And I know that Nick Sirianni is the big guy because he got the 10.0 relative athletic score. And so we'll see. I would love to see him bring in a safety. I fall in love with safeties every year, and the Eagles never draft him. And so maybe I'm a little jaded when it comes to safety as well.
I won't lie. I'm not getting my hopes up because the last safety I fell in love with was Banks a few years ago. We drafted Nolan Smith instead at that point of that draft, I think it was. And yeah, exactly. You mentioned Reed Blankenship's name. Obviously, this offseason, you got 3 names with contracts in limbo. Well, outside of Jordan Davis, you got Reed Blankenship. We know Cam Jurgens will get some form of an extension at some point, and Dallas Goedert as well is kind of in limbo. Do you see Howie we'll just keep Cam Jurgens out of it because he's not going to let Cam Jurgens go anywhere. That'll be dealt with. Reed Blankenship and Dallas Goedert, what happens with both their contract situations and their spots on this team, big picture here?
I think Reed comes back, and I think Goedert does not. So I don't think you can, as much as they haven't like super invested into the safety position, I don't think you can let Reed Blankenship go too. And I don't think Reed Blankenship's going to command a great contract. Like, okay. I mean, if we're going to be honest, if we're going to honestly assess Reed Blankenship as a safety, he's a replacement level starter. Like he's a slightly above average safety that Eagles fans tend to overvalue their players. They did it with Mekhi Becton. They do it with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They do it with Reed Blankenship. And Reed Blankenship, he's got that knack for making clutch interceptions that we love so much. And I love the guy. He's probably like in the 15 to 20 range of safeties in the NFL. I think you bring that guy back, and I don't think it's going to cost you a ton. So I think they bring him back. Dallas Goedert, I think they probably move on from. There's been lots of smoke that he won't even be on the roster this season, and I'll be really disappointed if that happens because I think they're in a Super Bowl window and they have no clear replacement for Goedert, and it just doesn't make sense to me.
Is there a trade market for Dallas Goedert? Because we keep talking about them trading Dallas Goedert, maybe, but we don't hear rumors that teams are interested in Dallas Goedert.
Yeah. If they trade Goedert, I doubt they would get more than like a day 3 pick for him. I think I would not understand the trade Goedert for a 3rd round or a day 3 pick or just to outright cut him. That just doesn't make sense to me. But there's been a lot of smoke about it, and they brought in several tight ends in free agency, and it kind of makes you think it's going to happen. But if it doesn't, like I think your ideal scenario with Goedert is that he plays out this season and then he hits free agency. Like I don't want to sign a 3-year extension with a oft injured 30-year-old tight end, but he's very valuable in this offense. So I would love to have him back in 2025 and make a run for the back-to-back Super Bowls.
We got our first offensive question here with you, and it's who's running back 2, only because K1 is the biggest Kenny Gainwell stan of all time. Actually, K1 might be Kenny Gainwell. I'm not really sure about that. So running back 2, answer K1's question. Is it A.J. Dillon or is it Will Shipley? Or is it somebody else that's not on the roster yet?
Yeah, or as I say, or somebody else, because that's another. We didn't mention this one earlier, but yeah, A.J. Dillon, same sort of move. Like, brings in competency, doesn't preclude Will Shipley from winning the job or you from drafting a day 2 or day 3 running back. So if we can just assume he's fully healthy, which we don't know, I'm not a doctor.
I don't even think the Eagles truly know that at this point.
Yeah, but he was out all of last year with a neck injury. So if we can just assume he's fully healthy, I think he's probably your running back 2. He would bring a nice compliment. I love Kenny Gainwell. I thought he was a great fit for the Eagles. I would have been concerned if like Saquon had to miss 3 games and Kenny Gainwell is your feature back, because as much as the Eagles run the ball, I think that would be tough. I think Kenny Gainwell is a good complementary back. I don't think he's really has like bell cow capability. I do think not Aaron Jones. Goodness. I do think A.J. Dillon has that capability. I mean, there was fantasy people and Packers fans getting upset just a few years ago because he was out snapping, out touching Aaron Jones in games. And that was kind of crazy, but it was the thing the Packers did. So at his best, he's going to be like a downhill running back. He's going to thrive in short yardage. He's not going to turn 2-yard runs into 15-yard runs in the way that Saquon can, but he's also not going to turn 2-yard runs into 3-yard losses the way that I'm not going to throw Will Shipley under the bus. We haven't seen him play enough, but maybe he could, or that maybe Kenny Gainwell could. He's just going to take what's there. And when you've got an offensive line that's so good, that's really valuable. And so I liked bringing him in. If he's healthy, I think he's probably in a competition with Kenny Gainwell. Goodness, I'm all over the place. With Will Shipley and with a day 3 running back. Like, I'd be surprised if the Eagles get out of this draft without taking a guy on day 3. You're going to throw all 3 of those guys up there, let them compete against each other and see who is RB2. But my money would be on A.J. Dillon, unless the Eagles go earlier than I think at running back.
All right, so you keep mentioning the draft. We keep mentioning the draft. Every Friday on this show, the people. So this is not my mock draft. This is the comment section running this mock draft. And I dives, duck, a lot of comments made these picks. This was the mock draft we ran this morning. Now, so we were sitting at pick 32, and Walter Nolan was there, but we were offered 49, and I forget which draft pick to trade back. They made me accept that. And then Denver offered 51 and a 4th to move back 2 spots. So our first pick came in at 51 here, and this is the draft that the people chose. So I want you to grade this work from the people here.
All right. This is going to be tough because I haven't watched every position group yet. But, okay, so Kenneth Grant.
I mean, towards the end, those last 2 picks, we just rapid fired because we were waiting to bring you on. But this is, at least through pick 164, is where the people chose all these players here. And if a draft like this, what would this mean for the offseason for the Eagles?
Okay, so Kenneth Grant, I've got a 2nd-round grade on. That's good value at pick 51.
So you basically got Kenneth Grant plus that 2nd and 4th round pick next year. So you're basically got all 3 of those in that one spot there.
Yeah. So yeah, I like the Grant pick. He's going to be kind of your run stuffing defensive tackle. You're probably letting Jordan Davis go in this scenario, but I like Kenneth Grant in that spot. I have not yet watched offensive line, so I can't comment on Tate Ratledge other than I've heard his name a lot, and the Eagles definitely need to replenish their interior O-line depth. So I'm going to assume that's a good pick there just from some of the things I've heard, but I haven't personally watched him yet. Okay. Gunnar Helm's great value. I also put a 2nd-round grade on Gunnar Helm, and so I would love him at 96. He's my tight end 3. He's primarily a blocking tight end before 2024, and he became a big part of the passing attack. So this is what I want in a tight end. Like, don't give me the Harold Fannin Jr. stuff. Like, I'm not interested in a tight end that can't block. If you can't get in line and block, you're not a tight end. You're a big slot receiver, and you're not as good at it as a regular slot receiver. So Gunnar Helm, I would really like that pick. And then we're getting into Guys that I haven't really watched a lot other than Dylan Sampson. I watched Dylan Sampson. I actually also gave Dylan Sampson a second round grade. So that's great value from there as well. Let's see what we're running. Yeah. The only real issue with Sampson is he's undersized and he only has 1 year of significant touches. And so I have questions about, can he survive a big workload at the NFL level? In the Eagles, he wouldn't worry about that. He's not going to get a big workload. He's going to be a backup. And so he's lightning quick. He is good as a blocker. Like Tennessee runs their big spread stuff and use only the 5 offensive linemen and the running back for 6-man protections. And so he had a lot of pass pro responsibilities and was good at that in Tennessee. So surprisingly, he's also one of those guys that will just put his head down and take what's there and not try. A lot of times you get the speed guys that want to bounce everything. And that's not really Dylan Sampson. He's got an 80% conversion rate on 3rd and 4th down in short yardage situations, 3rd and 4 or less. And so, yeah, I would really like that pick. And then I haven't watched defensive backs yet. So overall, though, I like the direction of that draft. I would be surprised if the Eagles don't end up. Wait, is pick 134 day 3? I don't think it is.
No,
I think it is. Yeah, I think day 2 goes to like 120 something. I can't remember now. The comp picks things always messes me up. There's 96 rate.
I'm trying to do the math in my head right now, and I can't.
I want to say it's like 106 total picks by the end of day 2. I would be surprised if the Eagles get out of day 2 without an edge, just given the landscape of the room. But yeah, overall, I like that draft.
All right. So so then getting into the draft and all, and Howie at 32, there's a lot of push for the Eagles to trade back, obviously, and we're all going to sit around on our draft shows and whatnot and wait for pick 32, and then he's going to trade back. But there is also that thread that maybe he moves up in the draft, that there's a guy like Starks or whatnot that falls to a certain level that Howie is comfortable not spending too much to move up 10, 12 spots. Obviously, he's not going to move up into the top 10 or anything like that. That'd just be too costly for him. But I know we're 5 weeks out from the draft at this point. Where do you see Howie going? Staying put, trading up, or trading back?
Oh man, that one's
it's tough, man.
Because it depends. I mean, I think you're better off predicting a trade than predicting a stick and pick. But
yeah,
the question is where. Maybe I think an ideal world for the Eagles would be that like a Jackson Dart is still there at 32 and some team wants to trade up to get his 5th-year option. Honestly, the last time the Eagles were at 32, that's exactly what happened, right? The Ravens wanted to trade up to get Lamar Jackson at the end of the 1st round. I think that's your ideal scenario if you are the Eagles. I don't know that necessarily happens. I think it's a weak QB class. And so I'll say the Eagles are more likely to have a small trade up. They got a lot of draft capital next year. I could see a guy starting to fall into the late 20s and the Eagles want to make a small move up and burn some of that capital.
Am I that loud, Dooms? I mean, I do have a loud voice. I can't help it. I do shout when I talk, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I could see it. I could see them doing anything. I think the one thing with Howie right now is that there's no predictability with what Howie will do. And until we see more of these top 30, visits start to get officially announced for the Eagles, we really won't really know. I mean, the reports yesterday were so far that there've only been 4, and they're all offensive linemen. You can't really make that judgment yet just based off of 4 guys. You know what I mean? Out of the dozens that'll be brought in at this point.
Yeah. And I do think if you want to have like a guide rail that the Eagles are going to draft player XYZ, go look up their relative athletic scores. The Eagles love to draft athletic guys. That's been one of the things that has changed since like the Jalen Reagor pick. And so if you go look back at, I think it's the last 4 drafts, the worst athlete that they've drafted is Anais Smith, who is still like a 7.3 relative athletic score, which is basically, for people unfamiliar with those, res.football is the website. It's slow, It's great. It's free. And it basically like coalesces all of the combine measurements and drills into a 0 to 10 point scale. And basically 10 is the most athletic guy ever to test at the position. And it equates to percentile. So the worst athlete they've drafted in like the last 4 years was 73rd percentile. And so when you hear Malachi Stark's name thrown around, he's at like a 5 point something. That makes me pretty skeptical he would be the Eagles' first round pick. So, but you can check that out. It's a great free resource. It is a little slow. It's not super mobile friendly, but it's a really cool deal. You can also follow at MathBomb on Twitter, and he posts a lot of those cards. If you want to go on mobile, it'll be easier to look for players by searching his tweets. But you can check that out. I do think that a lot of people are talking themselves into Malachi Starks. It would be a departure from what the Eagles have valued in the draft, for sure.
Interesting. Well, you can also just follow Shane Haff and the Eagles Pinpoll Podcast Network on all social media platforms, because obviously you guys do a great job breaking down all these prospects and breaking down all the film on all these guys and giving your opinions. And as the comments have said, they love and respect all the work that you do and everybody else on the team over there. So that's the other option, right? So what's next on the Pinpoll Podcast Network in the coming week?
Yeah, we're going to keep chugging through our position rankings on Armchair Scouts. So we're going to be we're double dipping next week because we accidentally missed this week. So next week we're going to do edge rushers and linebackers. So we'll have 2 episodes out. Birds of the Round Table is every Tuesday night doing whatever we can talk about at the moment. Johnny and I, we're on like a short hiatus because Johnny's wife just had their baby. Congratulations.
That's who's winning the offseason right there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So congratulations to Johnny and Elle, but we'll take a week probably off. And I mean, I don't know why we could just record in the middle of the night when he's awake with the baby, but we'll be back and we'll start hammering Eagles specific draft stuff on the Shane page probably in 2 weeks. And so, and then of course, obviously your morning show, The Check Down. If you guys aren't listening to that, you should be. It's my morning.
Why people are, but they are. Yeah.
It's my morning.
It's a precursor to what we're going to talk about on this show, basically every single morning.
Yeah, it's the morning routine for me. I get out of bed, I get my cup of coffee, and I listen to what Phil had to say for the last 8 to 10 minutes, and it keeps me from having to check all of the blogs and Adam Schefter's account to see what's going on in Eagles land all the time.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much, Shane, for coming on. We'll obviously have you on again soon, maybe before or just after the draft. There is a lot of reports here that a lot of people want to see me on the draft show with you guys, since I know nothing about the draft, but they want me on the draft show. So we might be working on something. Dives and I were already chit-chatting about that. But guys, thank you all very much for tuning in. Please, again, remember, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on replay, I check all comments. I respond to all comments and questions if you've got something that you missed. But again, guys, everybody have a fantastic weekend. Go Birds. Bubbles up.
Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 pop.